When I last explored this topic, we learned about the Vichy government and many of its policies. Today, however, I'll be explaining the very interesting situation that was happening in the French colonies at the same time. When Vichy France was created in 1940, it kept control over the previous French colonies as well. However, there was opposition to Vichy control in a lot of areas, defended by the Free French forces and loyal settlers. To give you an overview, here is the map depicting French colonies and their allegiances. You'll see in black, colonies which held allegiance to Vichy and the Axis all the way until they were invaded by the Allies. In blue are colonies that supported the Allies militarily and economically. In the mesh are colonies that had special situations in which the allegiance was divided. The Vichy government was allowed to have its own army, titled the Army of Armistice, meant to fight off the Free French. Nearly 150,000 men joined the army, most of which came from forced conscription. North Africa held the majority of soldiers at 105,000. The Middle Eastern Army, the Army of the Levant, held 40,000 soldiers, many of whom were of the specially trained Foreign Legion. The Vichy Milice was a voluntary paramilitary that helped Pétain crush rebellions in metropolitan France. The volunteers in the Vichy army were made up of fascists, Nazi sympathizers, anti-communists, and racists. Many of the French colonies became Vichy because of white governors who wanted more power, as seen in Somaliland and Madagascar. Most other colonies were taken over by Vichy-aligned members of the French army and navy sent over by Germany. With this broad preview over, I'll now more deeply explain what happened in some of these French colonies. Here in Central Africa, most colonies were surprisingly loyal to France, even though they were technically surrounded by the Axis. In the greater colony of French Equatorial Africa, Chad, Northern Congo, the Western Congo, and Cameroon quickly overthrew their Vichy leaderships within a month. However, Gabon's population did not agree with its leader's decision of joining the Allies, and so Gabon stayed loyal to Pétain until it was invaded and capitulated by November of 1940. 2 months before Gabon's defeat, Senegal had successfully repelled the Allied attempted invasion of Dakar. The Vichy forces made a humiliating defeat over Free France, and after, Vichy control over Senegal lasted until the liberation of France itself. The reason for this is not yet clear, because during the battle the Allies actually had more ships. Nonetheless, Senegal's situation was much like Gabon's, in which the population favored the Vichy side, and so war support was very high. The colonies who were closest geographically to France were most supportive of Vichy rule, as seen in Morocco, Syria, Lebanon, and Algeria. In Morocco, nationalists hoped that assisting either the Allies or Axis would grant themselves independence. However, no side guaranteed their independence. In the rest of North Africa, Vichy soldiers from France and Algeria put up heavy resistance to the invading American, British, and French forces. By late 1942, Vichy Admiral François Darlan had signed a permanent ceasefire with the Allies, convinced after many of the Vichy leaders were arrested by the French resistance. This armistice meant that all Vichy military would surrender in North and West Africa, but Admiral Darlan would still hold control over these colonies, and control he did. Many of the Nazi war crimes that were being committed in Europe were now allowed in Darlan's controlled territories. It's vital to understand that Vichy France and its colonies were mostly under the control of Nazi Germany as a puppet, and many that fought in the Vichy army did so out of fear. That said, this script is getting very long already, so I've decided to split the series into 3, continuing our exploration into Vichy France and other continents. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, check out my last video on Vichy France, or maybe some of these.